All right, everyone. Welcome to the Share. My name is Mark. I am your host. And today on the show, I have a special guest, and his name is Joe. Joe, welcome.
Thank you very much, my brother.
You're welcome. I brought some friends with. They're going to kick us off. It's the Recovery Band. Kick it, boys. And studio audience. So, Joe, it's been a while since I've seen you. It's been a few months.
Well, that's why I called you the other day. God said, "Hey, check out your buddy Mark and see how he's doing." You know?
Yeah, that's what we do. All is well here, and I'm glad that all is well with you. So, you were telling me that this weekend, there is a special event coming up at the 101 Club.
Oh no, that's something we're planning for August. But this weekend we have a big picnic, as we did last week. This is the Bottom Line Group's annual picnic, and it's a beautiful affair, and it's usually attended by 300-400 people. We have a speaker. We have Sheldon and the Magic Bus as the main entertainment, and all you can eat and drink. Well, not that kind of drink, but soda and water and.
Yeah. So now, do you do the cooking out, or do you guys have somebody come in and do it?
Oh no, this particular the Bottom Line will cook for themselves. I'm affiliated with the 101 Club, and I do just about all kinds of cooking there. Like St. Patty's Day, we did bingo.
Mm-hmm.
I made 50 pounds of corned beef.
Wow.
45 pounds of potatoes.
Wow.
Wait. There was more, 40 pounds of cabbage and 25 pounds of baby carrots. Okay.
Wow.
Well, here's the kicker. By the time I cleaned up from that and got inside, there was no food left.
Wow, really? So you cooked and there was nothing left?
Well, I'm a little pissed off, but this is where God kicks it, okay?
Yeah.
The next day, my boy is a very good musician, and the next day he is going to be playing at a little pub over in Plantation, not far from the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go out there and pay him a visit.
Mm-hmm.
Check him out and give him a little support,
Mm-hmm.
So little did I know that when I get to this pub, that my daughter, who I hadn't spoke to for 5 or 6 years, worked there. And I hadn't seen her. I hadn't spoke to her. We weren't on very good terms. And when I walked in the door, she jumped up in my arms, gave me a big kiss, right?
Yeah.
Sat me down at the table, brought me the biggest plate of corned beef and cabbage I've ever eaten.
Wow. And
the owners were so happy with all that was going on, they wouldn't even let me pay for it at the end of the evening.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I mean, he just works in such mysterious ways, you never know. And now I'm talking to my daughter. I got home that night and I had a Facebook request, a friend request from her. So.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, so, that's beautiful. God does work in mysterious ways.
You know what? And that's why I'm living this life, man. I just get up every morning. I have no clue what he's going to do for me. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, it usually turns out wonderful.
Yeah, it's, like, now, you obviously pray in the morning, right?
Well, that's my main source of energy. I go out, I have a little place in my backyard I call the prayer garden, and I like to go out there when it's dark, 3:30, 4, 5 in the morning. I sit out there for an hour and a half, whatever time allows me. I meditate, I pray, I write poetry, I do all this kind of stuff, and it's how I get right with God to start my day. And when I do that, my day is usually great.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
It allows you to look at the little misfortunes that happen to you along the way as blessings.
Mm-hmm.
Because I look at things from a very positive side today instead of a negative side.
That's beautiful. How many years have you been doing recovery?
I'm in my 16th year right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I never found it necessary to pick up at that one white chip. And let me tell you, when I picked that up, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what it meant. I just did it because all the old timers said, "Hey, get up there. You need to get one of them."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably the best way. I come in here so stupid and in such a fog that I gained a bit of humility. And to me, humility means to remain teachable.
Mm-hmm. That's a big thing that I've stuck to, is that we have to remain teachable every single day. Because if I think that I'm a know-it-all, then I'm kind of screwed. And I look back like over the last 2 years and realize like I didn't know anything coming in, and I still don't know much today.
Well, they used to tell me when I first came here, we never met anybody too dumb to get this program, but we met a lot of people that were too smart.
That's funny. That takes me back. There was a guy that said you can have a degree as long as both of your arms and legs, and you still can't get this simple program.
Yep.
That's so. So what was life like before recovery?
Well, it was probably like yours. It was a disaster, plain and simple. Me, I had a 38 plus year career of countless vain attempts I could prove to drink like a normal person, which I know today I can't because of this book that I'd never seen before in my life. And in that book, it has all my answers.
Yeah.
Every single thing. You know, I often say, how the heck did they write a book about me? I'm on every page of that book 21 years before I was born. Right?
Yeah.
It's like Bill Wilson was a Nostradamus or something, as it pertains to me, right?
Yeah.
And so I live by that book these days.
Yeah. Now were you kind of like I was? Like I kind of scoffed at that idea that all the answers were in the big book at first. I was like, really? Like, come on, really?
Well,
There's a lot of all the answers are in there?
Yes, they are, and I've come to learn that over the years. The thing is, I was so beaten up when I got here that anything they told me to do, I did.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't even bat an eyelash. If they told me to go stand in the corner and shut my mouth, which they often did, I did it.
Yeah. Now, what was one of the first things you did? Did you get a sponsor right off the bat, or?
No, I was physically incapable of doing that because I did not come in via way of treatment or detox or anything like that. Mm-hmm. My detox started on the Broward County Gray Bar Hotel floor, and the rest of my detox was done in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Wow.
The people there knew what they needed to do from the day I showed up, and when I showed up, bro, I was a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
You know, why anybody would even talk to me is beyond, my comprehension. Mm-hmm. I had hair down to my ass. I had a beard down to my belly button. I had an ankle monitor on. I had a GPS unit in my hand. And to tell you the truth, I couldn't even tie my shoes when I got here.
Wow.
That's how bad of condition I was in. So,
wow.
It was a long time before I could even speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were talking about hair down to your ass and a beard and a beard just as long. Like, we met last year, and
few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And you look nothing like that.
No, it's, and people remark about that all the time. Wow. We remember what you look like, who you were when you first got here. And it's nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah.
And I know today that the program is the miracle. I'm just a product of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's beautiful. Now, I had the privilege of sitting in on one of your step series that you did, and the way that you talked about the steps was amazing. It was easily relatable. What was one of the most profound steps for you?
Well, I'm going to tell you that I believe that we come in these rooms and we all start backwards. Whether we know it or not, we're all on step 12. That's exactly the way the program started, as a matter of fact, because they didn't have any steps, right? Mm-hmm. They started out by carrying the message and helping others. All right. So here's a freaky story. I was supposed to start a step series this coming Tuesday. Okay. So I went to the meeting the other Tuesday afternoon, and I was sitting there. I was, waiting for the woman to show up and do her final step. And she was sick and couldn't make it. So I get a phone call and ask, can I start the steps that day? I said, sure, why not? I don't need any books. I don't need any literature. I strictly do it from the heart, the brain, and from experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got up there and I did step 12. And because that's what they asked me to do, finish out for her.
Yeah.
So I did step 12, and it was so amazing. Let me tell you, I've never had response like this before. There was about 40 people in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and took me a half an hour to get out that door because each and every single one of them had to come up and say something to me.
Yeah.
Okay? One guy came up to show me the hair standing up on his arms, right?
Well, yeah.
Another newcomer told me, wow, you did this so simple. You did this so simple. I could relate to everything you said. Right?
Yeah.
And just people with 40, 50 years. Wow, what a beautiful job you just did.
Wow.
So here's here's another God incident, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a guy that made me do my first ever step series, and I was maybe a little over 2 years sober. And I'm telling him, I'm not ready to do a step series. He said, I'm telling you, you're ready. And this guy had 49 years at the time, right? Or no, 47, right? Because he's coming up on 60 years. He'll have, in a couple of months, he'll have 60 years. Mm-hmm. So anyway, when I'm coming home from this meeting that I just did the 12-step at, he calls me on the telephone. And I nicknamed him Page's Fred, right? Because he used to quote the pages out of the big book, and he loved that because that nickname stuck with him, right? For 15 plus years, he has that nickname now.
Yeah.
Right? Then he reminded me of how he was, when I met him, he was 45 years sober, and he did not believe in God. He was going through some very bad stuff. His soulmate had cancer, and I asked him one day, I said, Fred, how's Joyce doing? His soulmate. And he goes to me, oh, she's not doing very well, Joe. And I just looked at him, and I think I had about a year sobriety, and I just said, well, Fred, I'll pray for her. I'll say an extra prayer for her. And he told me that day is when he started to believe there was a God.
Wow. Right? So he had 45 years and hadn't come to believe yet.
No, but he was doing the deal, let me tell you. And I've seen that many, many times in this program. There's people that don't know they have God, but they have him.
Yeah.
There was another fellow, Joe Lamb, who died a couple of years back with 61 years sober, right?
Uh-huh.
And he used to tell you how he did not have a God, but everything that came out of his mouth was spiritual. Whether he knew it or not, he had God.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I recall doing step 10, my first step series. I'm doing step 10 at the West Broward Club, and he had 6 children. All right.
Yeah.
And he got a phone call during the meeting, and one of his sons had died. It was the third son that he had lost. And he was in shock, right? And he just announced that his son had just passed away. And all these people were telling him to shut up. There's a meeting going on. And I'm sitting up there doing step 10, and I told these people, what the hell is the matter with you? Do you not have any compassion?
Yeah.
This man just lost his son. And I got up from the podium, I walked over, I gave him a big hug, and that guy became one of my closest allies.
Wow. That's powerful.
God has given me that gift to introduce people to God on several occasions where he let me know it. Wow. And that's the most beautiful thing in life.
That is, there was something about your step series that touched me. Like you did it in a way that, you were telling stories and how it related, and the stories you would tell would relate to the steps. And I remember you saying something profound. You told me you were like 1 + 1 = 3, and I'd never heard that before. Before you had said that, and it's always stuck with me. And so, can you tell me who taught you that, or where you heard that?
That's a beautiful story, as a matter of fact. That was my first ever sponsor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the first time we ever sat down to do step work, which I guess I was maybe 4 or 5 months into the program, because like I said, I came in here in such a fog, I wasn't able to do too much for a long time. my detox lasted at least 120 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we sat down to do the step series, and we were at a very prestigious mansion that I call my halfway house. It's it's my aunt's winter estate, and that's where I was ordered to go live. You know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had tennis courts. I was looking at tennis courts. We were sitting by the pool. There was a private golf course. There's 3 of them in this little place called Atlantis, a little private village just outside of it, Lantana up in West Palm Beach. And I tell everybody, I tell everybody about this halfway house that I lived in with 2 Cadillacs in the garage and a golf cart in the 3rd garage, and how I wasn't allowed to leave. I couldn't even go to the pool because I had this ankle monitor on. I couldn't go play at tennis because it was 50 feet outside of the range of the GPS.
Mm.
So all these crazy things, right? So now my sponsor would come over to that house every Sunday or every other Sunday, and we would sit down and do step work. Mm-hmm. And the first time we ever sat down at a table that's seated 4, he moved one of the chairs and said, "This is where God sits." And he proceeded to say, whenever 2 alcoholics get together, God is present. So 1 + 1 = 3. And that's where I got that.
That's amazing. What did that touch you when you heard that?
Well, here's the thing that you got to remember. Joe came in here without a God, right?
Yeah.
So this God stuff scared the crap out of me. Mm-hmm. When I saw that word God in step 3, I said, "Oh well, I'm doomed." I said, "How am I ever going to get this program? I don't have a God. How am I going to give anything I don't have my will and my life over to?" And so I did step 1. And I know I did that correctly from the day I was at my first meeting, right? And my first meeting was a blessing. It was a closed big book meeting. It's still my home group today. It's called the Lantana Group, and I travel up there every Monday night. Be it a 50-mile round trip for me, I don't care.
Yeah.
I owe a debt of gratitude to the people that saved my life, right? Mm-hmm. So I stumble into this meeting. I stumble up into the parking lot, and I see a couple of guys sitting down by a bench by a little lake that's on the property, little church up there. And I ask them if they know about this meeting. And the 2 of them got up and they extended their hands and they welcomed me and they said, "Come on, we're going to show you where the meeting is," right? Mm-hmm. And today I know that I interrupted their step work. I had no clue what this program was all about, but I know today I interrupted their step work, and they didn't care. They got up, they guided me, they brought me in, they introduced me to people. And this place that became my home group was over 200 members strong at the time. So let me tell you, I must have met 100, 150 people that night. There were 300 people in that room, right? Mm-hmm. And this is what they call a closed big book meeting. So they started off where everybody has to go around and announce that they're an alcoholic, right? Mm-hmm. And when it came to me, I said, "I'm Joe, I'm an alcoholic." And some kind of relief came over me, right?
Yeah.
And they went around the room to all them 300 people. And, it doesn't really take that long. It only takes a few minutes. You would think it would take a lot longer, but it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And then they proceeded to start to read the big book. And that group dissects the big book a paragraph at a time. So I was blessed that day that I ended up in a meeting where they were reading the doctor's opinion. Wow. And I will remember this for the rest of my life, right? They started out on page Roman numeral 26. And the first thing that kind of jolted me was that the doctor said I was an outright mental defective. And I said to myself, wow, a lot of people probably thought that, but nobody ever told it to me.
Everybody sees it but us.
Right. That was like the first light switch that ever went off in my head. Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what we say. These things, they're little spiritual experiences that lead to a spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
That's what happened in my case anyway. Yeah. And then we went over 2 pages and it was just unbelievable because the doctor starts talking about the manifestation of the allergy that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I can really understand allergies because I'm allergic to penicillin.
Yeah.
I take it, I swell up, I can't breathe, I got to go to the hospital, right? So now the doctor just told me I'm allergic to alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about the phenomenon of craving, which was my whole life, that once I start, I cannot stop, right?
Yeah.
And he hit the nail on the head so much that right there and then at that second, I knew I could never drink again because
Yeah.
I'm allergic to alcohol. Wow.
Yeah.
All my life, I thought I was just stupid. I couldn't stop the stuff. But I'm not stupid. I'm allergic. And I know there's cures for allergies.
Yeah.
So that's what did it. That's what did it for me. In that bad a shape that I was in, boom. That was it.
Well, it says further down on that paragraph, frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. So it took hearing that out of the big book for you to realize what was going on.
That was it. And in the shape I was in, it was nothing more than a miracle. Again, the program is a miracle. If you do the program, it is a miracle, and you will become a byproduct of it. Okay?
Yeah.
Because if you go down to the bottom of that page, it says in so many words that at some point my alcoholic life became my normal life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And boom, that was it. That was it.
Yeah, it says to them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They're restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort, which at once comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. So how did you expel the obsession? Like, when did you realize the obsession was gone?
I just told you when I saw that word allergy. That was it.
That was it.
I have not had a drink since.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Has the thought run through my brain of having a drink? It most certainly has.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason being is because I'll be driving down the road. There'll be a big billboard for, Frenchie's orange vodka.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. When the hell did they make that crap? When I was drinking, they only had one flavor of vodka back in the old days, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm old, so that's why. But but things like that intrigue me. They make me think. Okay,
Yeah.
but my brain has done a 180, and that's. I remember that's what my sponsor looked at me. Don't worry, we know how to fix you. He told me one day, and I looked at him and said, like a puppy dog, my tongue hanging out, my eyes wide open. Oh yeah, how you gonna do that? He goes, oh, we just got to change the way you think.
Wow.
And I was like, this guy's nuts. What the hell's it? What do you mean change the way I think? Well, my thinking has done a 180.
Uh-huh.
And he did it in such little subtle ways. Like, here's an example. I remember for, the first 6 months it used to be, hi, I'm Joe, I'm an alcoholic. He told me, why don't you try putting the alcoholic in front of your name and announcing yourself, I'm an alcoholic, my name is Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it started. And then over the years, it developed to things that I learned that I had in there. And now I announce myself, I'm an alcoholic, powerless over alcohol. My biggest problem is Joe.
Wow. Yeah. I remember you introducing yourselves in that room. And that's a short, but yet powerful statement. And
well, if people understand what the problem is, what the true problem is not our drinking. It tells us that in the book. It says drinking was but a symptom,
mm-hmm.
right? Alcohol was but a symptom.
Yeah.
Right.
Bottles are but a symbol.
Right. I read a powerful book written by an old AA. It's AA approved. It's called A New Pair of Glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And it was written by an old-time AA by the name of Chuck C. He lived out in California.
Yeah.
Right? And this guy had, he had a good life. So he had the luxury of going around like Bill and Bob and doing speaking gigs and stuff like that. But he wrote this book. And the whole first chapter tells me what my problem is. Right?
Yeah.
My problem is not the alcohol. My problem is my ego.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Because all my life, right? I thought I could drink like a normal person, which today I know I can't because of all this literature.
Yeah.
Right? So my ego, what is it doing? Well, my brain kind of works like, I don't know if you ever saw, I used to watch cartoons when I was a kid. And there's this cartoon, it's called Tom and Jerry.
Yeah,
right?
that's a great cartoon.
Well, quite often in this cartoon, you'll see the devil on Tom's left shoulder, whispering in his ear, go ahead and do it, right?
Yeah.
And then on his right shoulder pops up this angels and it says, you can't do that, Tom. Remember what happened the last time you did that?
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly how my brain works today. If the thought of a drink comes into my mind, that devil pops up on the left shoulder, and that's actually how your brain works. Because my first two sponsors were big into studying the brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the brain works where the left side is the ideas you get, and the right side is the voice of reason to think these ideas out and play them through.
Yeah.
So that cartoon was telling me a message when I was 6, 7 years old, watching that thing every Saturday, eat my corn puffs,
Mm-hmm.
And I never even knew it.
Yeah. Now, what did you, now you're talking about the doctor's opinion. What was it like for you when you got into Bill's story?
Well, I could definitely identify with that because Bill's story basically is telling me how much fun it started out being, right?
Yeah.
And then where it eventually took him, right? Where he didn't want to be anymore.
Yeah.
Right? But he couldn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Until his buddy Ebby showed up and gave him a few ideas. Okay?
Yeah.
And, and that's the other thing, Bill Wilson claimed to have a white light experience. Well, when you come to think about it, because he all of a sudden got this thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, did he really? Or was it just the fact that he sat down and did most of the steps in 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
He did the same work I had to do, only I did my work over a period of almost 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I don't think...
Yeah, he blazed through them really quick, according to his story.
Yeah, I mean, within 2 weeks, he was running around making amends, and, I guess he didn't get too far, but...
Yeah. Yeah, that's profound. And you think about the program and how Bill met Bob, and it's almost as if God had a hand in that.
Oh, he definitely did. I mean, and thank God he put the two of them together, because Bill was like the devil on the left shoulder, wanting to make a profit out of this thing, and Bob was the voice of reason.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember you talking about your fourth step and how you still have it today.
Oh, yes. It tells you you're supposed to have your fourth step when you get to your eighth step.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we're making our eighth step list, it says you already got to start from what you did on your fourth step.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is how it worked for me. When I did my fourth step, my sponsor had his original fourth step. And he broke the ice by telling me a story. Don't get me wrong. I know today it tells me on page 57 of the 12 and 12 that what I fail to recognize is that I am incapable of having a relationship with another human being. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I know today that my sponsor through the first 3 steps was building the first relationship I was ever going to have without alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was comfortable enough with him to sit down and do that 4th and 5th step. Right.
Yeah.
No problems. I didn't have a fear of doing the 4th step. I did have a mental block at first, but I figured out a way to get around that. And once I did, and the stuff started flowing. So anyway, he shows up. We're going to do the 4th step. We're sitting out by that pool again. And, he breaks out his and he reads something off of it. And then I break out mine and I read something off of it. And mine, he told me, do it in a hard covered notebook because you're going to keep this, Because I hear guys say in the rooms, yeah, when I was done with it, I burned it. Well, listen, you idiot. You should have waited because when you get to step 8, it tells you to pull it back out again. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does say that, and I've heard people talk about it. Now, I have heard people say, hey, I burned it, and it was a beautiful experience. But yeah, at the same time, I've heard people talk about not burning it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the book tells you you're supposed to have it when it comes time for eight. But I'm glad I didn't burn mine. And the way my sponsor did with me is the exact way I do with other people.
Hmm.
Mine comes out, and over the years, we do the best we can when we do a fourth step and a fifth step, right? But
Yeah,
it's impossible to remember all the damage we did. And still to this day, damage can pop up that I did not recognize. And that book comes out, and I write it down. And then I
yeah,
call somebody up and I share it, be it my sponsor or a sponsee or whomever,
yeah,
you know? Because once you share, right, you've halved the problem. That's what I learned,
yeah.
right? And and right there, it's a relief.
Yeah, wow, that's beautiful. So you've been, having to make amends as you've gone on this journey then.
Oh yes, but here's the thing about amends, right?
Hmm.
It like Bill started running all over the place and doing his amends. It doesn't tell me I have to do that. It tells me I have to be willing.
Hmm.
You got to realize there was a time when I worked for a Fortune 500 company and I flew all over the world. And my job was to get people drunk and get them to sign the dotted line, right? And it was a very profitable job, but there was probably some of my darkest drinking days ever, right?
Hmm.
And there is no way in the world that to this day could I afford to fly all over the world again and make amends,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I am willing to make every amends that I ever need to, all right?
Hmm.
Some of them were easy, like with immediate family, right?
Hmm.
I did the kind of the indirect amends with most of them just by my behavior today. By
Yeah.
the time I got there, they said, don't worry about it. All we wanted was our son back or our brother back or our cousin back,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
And you're doing that and just keep doing what you're doing,
yeah,
right? Just keep doing the right thing.
yeah. Now,
Even if it's, you know, go ahead.
yeah, no, well, with the men's, I know when I got sober, I wanted to, run out and make apologies right away, and I hear people talk about that, and I've learned along the way that that's not really the way that it works. I can't
No,
go out right away and do it.
I was told, number one, never use the word sorry and never use the word apologize. Listen, when I was drinking and I used to tell you I was sorry, you might as well be telling you to kiss my butt because that's basically what it meant, right?
Yeah.
So I was told to always start off with, I was wrong. What can I do to make it right?
Hmm.
And sometimes people will look you in the eye and tell you there ain't nothing you could ever do to make it right. Well, all I know is I tried.
Yeah.
That's what it tells me. Not everybody is going to accept my amends, but guess what? Joe got the broom out and dusted off his side of the street.
Hmm. Yeah. That's when I was told about like cleaning up my side of the street. At first, I didn't comprehend what that meant and why I had to do it. Well, when I got into the big book and started reading about it, it makes pretty clear why I have to do that. And it's
And
because I'll drink again if I don't.
and you know something, Mark? I've never told you, but I've always appreciated like when you share meetings and you open up that big book and you read one of them stories out of the back because that is something that I didn't venture to do early on in my sobriety, right?
Hmm.
I've only recently started to do it, is read those stories in the back
Yeah.
because, all I know is it's the Roman numerals in the first 164 pages that are going to get and keep you sober and bring you to a happy life if you just follow the instructions,
Yeah.
right? The rest of those stories, I didn't need after the doctor's opinion for anybody to be able to show me why I'm an alcoholic,
Yeah.
right? But I have since ventured into the stories. As a matter of fact, I'm presently reading the book called Experience, Strength, and Hope, right?
Yeah.
Which is all the stories that were ever in the big book and then some.
Yeah.
The first part of the book is actual stories from the first original 100.
Yeah.
And that's where I am now. I'm on like page 100. And it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing reading these stories and laughing. they used like different language back then.
Yeah, they did.
Well, I heard they're actually coming out with a version of the Big Book with modern day language.
Yeah, I heard that too. And it's and I don't think that's the fifth edition. I just think it's like a modern updated
No,
language book.
yeah, no, they're making the fifth edition as well, but they are going to come out with a modern, updated language because a lot of people don't understand what the hell a whoopee party was, right?
the whoopee party and moving pictures and completing a jag
Yeah,
but in a way like I get why they're doing that, but also on the opposite side of that, like if I don't know what something is, like it's actually expanded my reading knowledge because like I have to look up what that means, and I'll look it up in the terms of AA definitions of stuff, and Bill was a great writer when it came down to what he wrote in the Big Book and the stories. Some of the things I read in the stories, like it makes me think, like what are they
yeah.
talking about?
Well, and it's funny you should say that because this is it. The only book my sponsor ever made me purchase was the Big Book.
Yeah,
The day I asked him to be my sponsor, he gave me a little test out of the book. He opened up his book. He goes, "You got a Big Book?" I said, "No." So he opened up his book to page 96, made me read the first paragraph, which basically says that if I ask him to be my sponsor and I don't do what he suggests I do and I'm wasting his time, he's not going to worry about it. He's just going to go help the guy that wants to help, right?
yeah.
So he asked me to read that paragraph and look at him and tell him what I thought it meant. And I just looked him in the eye and gave him the most direct answer I could ever think of. I'm not wasting your time. And I must have passed that test because he took me through the steps and he changed my life. That's simple.
That's beautiful. Now that on page 96, where it's do not
The
be
top
discouraged.
paragraph.
Yeah, do not be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. Search out another alcoholic and try again. You are sure to find someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you offer. We find it a waste of time to keep chasing a man who cannot or will not work with you. If you leave such a person alone, he may soon become convinced that he cannot recover by himself. To spend too much time on any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and be happy. And one of our fellowship failed entirely with his first half dozen prospects. He often says that if he continued to work on them, he might have deprived many others who have since recovered of their chance. And it's true. And it's absolutely true. I remember my first sponsee that I had, like I was like, why isn't this guy calling me? And I was trying to chase him down, and I was like, and then my sponsor took me and showed me that, and I was like, okay, I get it now.
Yep. And that's how it started for me. That's the first assignment I ever had, was to read that paragraph, tell him what it meant. And so after that, okay, any other literature we use, my sponsor presented me as a gift. But the first thing he did after I bought my Big Book that week, he said, "Have a Big Book next week." So I bought one, and the guy didn't have change, so he didn't want to, he said, "Okay, just pay me next week." And when I came in and paid that guy next week, he freaked out. He thought he was never getting paid for that book, right? But he gave it to me anyway.
Yeah.
And so when I showed my sponsor that I had a Big Book, he whipped out a dictionary and he gave it to me. One of them thick Websters, about 3 inches thick. He said, "This is what I want you to start doing. You start reading that book." He goes, "And anything that jumps out at you, you highlight it." Excuse me.
Yeah.
And he said, "Any word that you don't understand, you look it up in this dictionary." So that's the way it started for me.
Wow. That's great. Now, he was there to answer any questions you had while reading, like what if something means, or did he just have you just go to the dictionary?
Oh no, I went to the dictionary. They gave me a line of defense for what I wanted to drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a 4-part line. They told me the first thing you do is pray, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it took me a while to get into that habit, because remember, I told you I didn't have God when I got here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I used to call my sponsor and bitch and moan and complain about this and that. And he used to say, "Well, whatever you do, don't pray about it." And he'd hang the telephone up on me.
Okay.
Because he knew I hadn't prayed, right?
Yeah.
All right.
That's
Then That's hilarious. I know, ain't it?
Well, it is, because I remember I had the first sponsor I tried to work with. I used to call him going out of my mind, and he used to say, "Go to God." And then a couple weeks later in a meeting, we were talking about going to God, and he says, "Yeah, anybody that calls me with any BS, I tell them to go to God." And I was like, "You told me to go to God," but in a way,
Right?
it cracked me up, because I was like, okay, I get it now. But when you said that, that just took me right back to that moment where it's
Because
like, pray about it.
it's exact same wording, just I mean, exact same thing, just different wording, right?
Yeah.
So, and then he told me my second line of defense is to read something. You know, pick up the big book and open it up randomly, or even pick up the Bible and open it up randomly.
Mm-hmm.
It's hilarious. You know, I picked up the Bible, and I never used to read the Bible. But when they said I had to have this God, I figured, well, that's the only place I'm going to find him. So I started reading the Bible early on in my sobriety.
Yeah.
And I don't think I found God in there, but I found a lot of program stuff, like faith without works is dead, James 2:26, right?
Mm-hmm.
I found in there the last sentence in the first 164 pages, may God bless you and keep you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Numbers 6:24. And I'm thinking to myself, why is there all this Bible stuff? Well, I know today that we were not a religious program, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before the big book came about, they would have the Bible, they would have a copy of Sermon on the Mount. Those are the things that sat on their podiums, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they used the Bible to reinforce their spirituality, like I still use today ever since I started picking it up.
Yeah.
And that's where all these Bible verses come from.
Yeah.
You know, I also know that that I know, and I've told people, okay, where the 12 steps come from, right?
Yeah.
If you recall, I tell everybody they come from St. Benedict's 12 steps to humility, in which he uses Jacob's ladder as a metaphor. And each step in St. Benedict's 12 steps to humility is to build a little bit more humility in us. Just like it tells us in the 12 and 12 on page, I believe it's 67, right?
Uh-huh.
No, it's 68. It tells us that the only thing we can do 100% correctly in this program is the first half of step 1 and admit we're powerless, right?
Yeah.
It says and I say the first half because that's a hyphenated step, right?
Uh-huh.
My life had become unmanageable. Yeah, well, you know what? It gets unmanageable sometimes still today, but the program has showed me how to manage that unmanageability, right?
Yeah.
I call somebody and talk it out, or I make a good decision instead of a fly off the hip decision, right?
Yeah.
But then it goes on to state that the only thing we can do with the remainder of the steps is be willing and try.
Yeah.
Right? But then it says every single one of these steps is here to help you develop more humility. So
yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's I noticed as long as I went down the process that the ego started to deflate more and more and more, and I became more willing more and more, because at the beginning I know that I used to fight this, and I wanted to fight this because it wasn't my idea to do these steps. And when did you realize along the way that the steps were working in your life?
Okay, well, I've told you this story before, and the thing is that when step 3 kicked in, it changed my life completely upside down, 180, total turnaround, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very humbling story for me. And like I told you, I didn't have God, so I get to step 3, and I'm telling these old timers, man, I'm never going to get this. I don't have God. How the hell? And they said, son, are you willing to do the rest of the work? And I said, I'll do whatever you tell me, because I don't want to drink. And they said, well, we promise you, if you continue and do the rest of the work, that God is going to show up. So that's what my decision was in step 3. My decision was to continue doing the rest of the work, continue doing the rest of the steps, and see what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, this and yeah, I'm gonna tell a story real quickly, as quickly as I can.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
this is the story of when I'm sitting at a meeting one day, a 5:30 meeting out back at the West Broward Club, welcoming everybody as I normally did. Okay, because that was my first service job, and my home group, my sponsor, said you're going to greet. You got to come to the business meeting. They're going to have to vote you in to be a greeter, because that's how big that meeting was. You had to be voted in to be a greeter. Most meetings just let you stand out there and do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I get a phone call from my father, and it's very unusual for him to be calling me at that time of day. And I pick it up, and he's crying. And I said, "What the heck's the matter, Dad?" And he tells me, "They said I'm going to die if I don't let them take off my left leg." And I didn't even think, but I just said to him in response, "Dad, it's okay. There's lots of people that live with one leg. You know, you get a precedent." He goes, "No, you don't understand. I'm not letting them do it."
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, he was crying, I was crying, and I was on one of my motorcycles that night. And I remember just flying home, and I didn't go to that meeting. I flew home, and the tears were coming down my eyes so bad while I was riding. I don't know how I saw to get there. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm in a predicament. What the heck do I do? And I'm maybe a year and a half sober, right?
Yeah.
And so I do what a friend of mine had taught me. They had introduced me to this prayer garden at the local church. It's a place called St. Gregory's in Plantation, and it's beautiful. There's piped-in music. There's monuments to people that made donations. And there's marble benches, and there's all these statues. And I went there for 3 days straight, praying to God to what to do. And this is like the end of fall, beginning of winter. And God said, "Joe, you know how it clears your head when you ride your motorcycle?" He said, "You need to take a motorcycle ride up to New York and go see your father."
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. So I explained to everybody in the meetings that, I'm heading up to New York, and I'm not going to be around for a while. And so everybody's going, "Oh, well, you can't ride your motorcycle up there. It's too cold. There might be snow, blah, 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 blah. Let me buy you a bus ticket. Let me buy you a plane ticket. I said, "Nope, this is what God told me to do." So I proceeded to ride up from my home in Plantation up to Long Island, New York. And I had it pretty much planned out. I was going to stop in Lumberton, North Carolina. That's the halfway point. Take about 10 hours to get there. And then another 10 hours, and I'd be there. And I planned on trying to do this all, in the light hours or in the early morning when there's not too much traffic. So I proceeded on my way. So I remember being up somewhere in Titusville, and I'm riding along. I like to do about 90, stuff back then. And I had this guy with a horse trailer next to me, and he would pass me, and then I would pass him, and we were like playing a game,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the guy got a blowout. He was in the left lane. He got a blowout in the trailer. And so he brought his vehicle to an immediate halt in the left lane. And I pulled over on the right shoulder. I was walking over to help him. And all of a sudden I heard the screeching of tires and seen the smoke. And a car blew right into the back of the horse trailer, probably at 90 miles an hour. And I turned around to run because the shrapnel just started flying all over the place. And it was like, I was in amaze that I didn't get hit by anything,
Yeah.
And there was nothing you could do. The horse was definitely dead because there was nothing left of the trailer, right?
Yeah.
So I just got on my motorcycle and continued on my way.
Yeah.
So I made my stop in Lumberton. The next morning I get up, it's foggy as hell out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't see crap. Every 2 seconds I got to wipe the mist off my goggles. And I know it's going to slow me down, but I decided, well, maybe you better stop and take a cup of coffee. And I did, and then all of a sudden the fog lifted. So now you got to remember, this whole ride that I started in Plantation, I'm praying to God, and I'm talking to God, and I'm singing to God, asking him how am I going to convince him my father to have him take his leg, right? This is selfish me. I don't want him to go anywhere. I want my father here, right? Selfish me. Well, somewhere in the middle of Virginia, God smacks me right in the head and tells me, it's none of your business, Joe. It's between me and your father. If you don't want me to take his leg, I'm not taking his leg. And boom, right there and then that second, right? I understood what step 3 was. Thy will, not my will, be done.
Yeah.
So it ended up that I was up there, and it happened to be the year of my 50th birthday, which I celebrated up there. Got to have Thanksgiving with the family for the last time, and it was just truly, truly amazing. I ended up becoming my father's advocate because I have 5 brothers and a sister, and they all tried to interfere and make him do things he didn't want to do, and I ended up becoming his advocate and making sure that whatever he wanted happened for the next 3 years of his life, because that's all he lasted.
Yeah.
And that was beautiful.
That's
God also gave me the privilege and told me again that this was going to happen. All right, from that very same prayer God.
yeah.
When they deemed him terminal and gave him 10 to 12 days to live, I got a phone call. I was at a meeting I had started down in Broward County, and so I got on my flight, and it was I remember that night. It was the supermoon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole East Coast was under thunderstorms and stuff like that. Nobody on the ground could see it, but I was in an airplane up above all that stuff, and that supermoon shone in my face the whole friggin' time we were flying. And it was one of the most beautiful sights I'd ever seen, that big orange moon.
Yeah.
That was 2012, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I get up there, and I forgot how stubborn we are, my family. He was supposed to be dead in 10 days, 2 weeks to max.
Yeah.
He lasted for 6 weeks. And I put my life on hold for him. And I was there by his bedside. And I reintroduced him to God before he left. Just because the first morning there, I'm sitting in the corner reading my Bible. And my dad said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm reading the Bible." He said, "Well, why don't you read it out loud?" So every day for the next 6 weeks, I would go in and read the Bible to him.
Wow.
I actually bought him one because it was his birthday was coming up, 81 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And what the hell do you buy somebody for their birthday that's going to die? Right?
Yeah.
What do you buy? So what I did was I bought him a Bible, and I bought him a fruit tree. I bought him a pear tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I planted the pear tree out in the backyard, and I took a picture of it, and I showed him. I said, "This way, when you're gone, Dad, people can take a pear off the tree and eat it and remember you."
Wow.
And so anyway, this is the story. God had told me that I was going to be the one holding his hand when he left. And the story came true. And I told a friend of mine before I left, a big biker dude named Bear.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved him. I loved that guy so much. He would give the biggest bear hugs. He'd give you a big old kiss on the cheek, and there's nothing you could do about it. The guy was huge.
Yeah.
But anyway, he said, I told him I'm leaving. He said, "Don't worry, Joe, we got your back. Anything you need, okay, you call me and I'll make sure it happens." And all kinds of crap was going on down with my wife and kids at the house. The air conditioning took a crap. Well, I had a neighbor that was an AC man, and he came and put a unit in and didn't worry about collecting the money till I got back, right?
Yeah.
And the old lady's car broke, and another friend went over there and took care of that, right?
Yeah.
Just things, and I would get 40 to 50 emails and texts and phone calls a day from the people in Florida.
Wow.
But in the meantime, the people in New York knew what I needed to do, and they put me to work.
Yeah.
They put me in a speaker pool. They call it a speaker pool. So I would get random phone calls. "Hey, come speak at this location tonight," right?
Yeah.
And I had just over 3 years sobriety. So the first 3 weeks that I was there, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I spoke 23 times. 23 times all over Long Island, New York City. I even went to New Jersey. I went to New Jersey on Mother's Day, May of 2012. It cost me $60 in tolls to go and speak at an AA meeting in Jersey City.
Wow.
And these are totally different meetings. That was a meeting where there was a couple of hundred of us in the basement. That meeting don't end in an hour, right? That meeting ends after I stop speaking, and they go around the room and they make every single person say something. They don't let you pass. You have to physically say something.
Wow.
So anyway, and then they got me chairing meetings,
Yeah.
right? At places I've never been before. And it's funny because after I left, I have another buddy that from up on the island that's very close friends with me. We have very common sobriety time, and he was born the same place I was, exactly 1 year and a day before me, and we're very, very close. And he went up to New York the next week that I had returned, and he called me up. He said, "What the heck did you do up here?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "These people are talking about you like you're a rock star." Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What the hell do you mean? All I did was what they showed me to do down here." Right? But sobriety's a little different, so I guess I may have intrigued him.
Yeah.
But anyway, here comes the fatal day. All right. It's been 6 weeks, and it's time for my dad to leave. And my brother, who had become a nurse, my brother had no drive in life. He lived in the house. He was the youngest brother. He was in his 40s, and he had no drive. And he just lived under their roof and ate their food and helped them out, you know. But he became a nurse so he could take care of my mother, who had MS for over 40 years, and take care of my father in the last of his days, right?
Yeah.
And matter of fact, when I was up there, I got to go to watch him. He was valedictorian of his class. I got to watch him graduate from nursing school.
Wow.
I was so proud of him. But anyway, they had given him a fatal dose that if my father got in terrible pain, to give him this dose of morphine and be done with it. So I remember the morning that I was in there with my father, right, and holding his hand and praying and reading the Bible. And my brother comes up and he goes, "I'm going to take a shower, and after I take the shower, I'm going to give him the dose." I says, "You can't do that." I said, "Let God do his work. He's not going anywhere. He's not in any kind of pain. Just let him be." It was about the third day he was like comatose, and the machine was keeping him alive.
Yeah.
And this was in my family home. We did in-house hospice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in the room, and my brother goes in the shower, and I get out on the porch, and I light up a cigarette, and I says, "God, you can't let him do that, because he's going to regret it one day. He's going to regret it one day." So I remember going back upstairs, opening up the Bible again, taking my father's hand, and I was reading him Revelations 15, which is, about the fire and the brimstone and all these not so good of things, but I don't know why we opened up to that page, but that's where God led me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's maybe a 20-line verse. So it might have took me 2 minutes, and sometime between when I put my hand in his and was reading that verse, my father left us. And there wasn't any pain. There wasn't a moan. There wasn't a groan. There wasn't a twitch. There wasn't a flinch. He just left so peacefully. And I was in so much in step 3 that I felt at ease. Don't get me wrong. Was I sad? Yes, I was sad. But my father no longer had this pain. And I realized that. That's that 180 that my brain did, right?
Wow. Wow, Joe, that's an incredible story.
Yeah, and I remember the bathroom was right next to the bedroom. My brother come out from his shower, see me leaning over my father crying, and he knew what had happened. So
yeah.
And he thanked me at the service. He told me he would have never been able to do that.
Yeah.
He would have never been able to do that. So now you got to fast forward to 4 years when now they deem my mother's gone, right? And I get a phone call, says, get up here. I says, okay, I got something to do tomorrow. I'll be there Wednesday. And guess what? I just had a feeling, and I call up there. It's like 9:30 in the morning, and my mother had left 5 minutes before. And one day before, I could have got up there. But when I got up there, my brother thanked me because he told me that what I did for my father, he was able to do for my mother.
Wow. Wow.
Give me a second. I'm crying a little bit.
Hey, that's fine, Joe. Take your time.
So anyway, these are gifts that the program gave me to watch my parents' pain disappear.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they should have no complaints. They were very beautiful people, and they lived a good life.
Joe, that's a very touching story. It's beautiful.
Yep.
So
But this is what the program does if you stick around long enough and you follow the instructions in that book.
the book's powerful. It is. It's every day I keep the big book with me. I have it with me on my workbench. I have it with me in my car. I have it. That big book is it's a handbook for a living.
You know, it's second only to the Bible as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And I don't like to advertise AA things. You know, I see people wearing big triangles around their neck and things like that. It's attraction rather than promotion.
Yeah.
But there's one thing that I do have, and that's a patch on my biker vest down towards the bottom. And it's the circle with the triangle, and it's blue with white detail, and it says it's in the book.
That's a great patch. It is. I was told if it's not in the big book, then the big book's what matters. And
you know what? I had a sponsor that, guess what? He never ever made me do anything, but everything he suggested to me came out of that book.
Yeah. So the big book talks about service. Now, I know in the beginning of this, we started talking about a little bit about the service that you do. And, and you were talking about all the speaking and the step series and the grilling out. What does service mean to you in your life?
There's nothing better than service. I'll tell you another quick story, okay?
Yeah.
So I come in 2009, right? I don't have God. I'm looking everywhere for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I stumble across an author. His name is Max Lucado. And he's a preacher out of San Antonio, or Oak Hills, just outside of San Antonio, Texas. Very famous. He's written over 100 books. I have every single one of them. I've never picked one up that lasted more than 2 or 3 days, and that is the man basically that showed me how to see God in the simplest things, like in a bird singing to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or in a flower opening up, or in the butterflies as they're prancing, the dragonflies around my head, right? This is the man that showed me God. So I'm in a meeting one time, and there's a pastor from the Lamb of God. There used to be a detox for guys get out of prison down here.
Yeah.
And it's right in front of the club I hang out at, mostly the 101 Club. And so this guy's doing a step series, and he's speaking up there, and it sounded to me like the words that I would read in Max Lucado books.
Mm-hmm.
So after the meeting, I go up, strike up a conversation with him, and we start talking, and turns out he's like a fourth descendant of Dr. Bob. Clarence Snyder was his grand sponsor. This fellow wrote a lot of the footnotes in Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I asked him, I said, what do I got to do to become a minister or a preacher or whatever? He says, come see me this Sunday. And I went and saw him, and for the next 2.5 years, every Sunday, I would forego one of my favorite things, what was football. And I would go there and I would do whatever he told me and read these readings and do this and do that until I was finally ordained a non-denominational preacher with the Missionary Chapel out of Iowa on July 19th of 2012.
Yeah.
Just like a month and a half after my father had passed.
Yeah.
And I wanted my father to see that so bad. But you know what? Looking back, I know he already knew.
Yeah. Wow.
So now my service, my ministry, okay? And every weekend, I have a bunch of homeless fellas that I go and visit and I feed them. I cook for them and feed them. Well, sometimes I can't afford to cook, so they get peanut butter sandwiches. But whatever. This is food they probably wouldn't eat that day.
Yeah.
If Joe didn't show up.
Yeah.
And because of my business and all that stuff, here comes Gangster Joe. And to see 6 and 7 people's faces light up when you're walking up there.
Yeah.
That are so far gone, right?
Yeah.
Yet you can see the hope in their eyes.
Wow.
So that's one of my biggest service things I do today, because it's remember what it says in the 12th step in all our affairs.
Yeah. That's a beautiful service. So now I have you in my phone as Gangster Joe. And I remember you kind of introducing yourself that way when you were doing the Step series. How did you get the name Gangster Joe? Was it them that gave it to you?
No, it's okay. So I own a little moving company. I started back in 2016 with a fella that I used to work with. We worked for an auction house. We used to do estate cleanouts and move pianos and giant statues and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So the guy and the kid was in the program. You know, I was taking him under my wing. He used to live with me in a house that I rented in Fort Lauderdale. And all of a sudden he hooked up with this chick, right? And made her his higher power. And he started going downhill. And when he lived in the same house with me, yet he couldn't make it to work on time. Because he would sleep with her. And, I got to take her kid to the doctor. But bro, we got a job, man. You can't do this. We're just starting this business, right? You got to be dependable. You got to be trustworthy. So anyway, I had to break off our relationship with him, and my son started working with me, right?
Yeah.
And our first company, what the heck was the name? It was named after chewing tobaccos.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I can't think of the name right now, but so anyway, I'm helping a friend from up in West Palm Beach that's in the program move. And my ex-fiance happened to be there helping because she was friends with her as well. And I'm up on the back of the truck throwing boxes off the truck at everybody, right? Nobody has to move, just here, catch. And my ex-fiance goes, "You guys move like gangsters." And then, boom, that hit me. That was the name of the company, Gangster and Son Moving.
Wow. So that's how you got it.
That's how it came about. And after that, everybody just started calling me Gangster in the rooms. So still today, I walk up to a meeting, here comes Gangster Joe.
Yep. It's every time, like when you texted me the other day, I saw Gangster Joe come up across my phone. I was like, it's Gangster Joe. All right. And so I'm glad that you have that name. It's a great name. So before we end this, what do you have for the newcomer that might be listening to this?
I just tell them, this is something that my grand sponsor always used to say. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've heard the first part, but you may not have heard the second part of this. And he used to say, don't leave before the miracle happens, but don't leave after it happens either. Because hey, let's face it, that's what happens. People start to get their life back. They get the job, they get the car, they get the girl, and the next thing you know, you don't see them at meetings. And the next thing you know, they're with their tail between their legs picking up another white chip, if they're lucky enough to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of them die, right?
Yeah. It's true. Like today is a gift. Right now is a gift. This moment is a gift.
Every second is a gift.
Yeah. That's Joe, thank you so much for your time today. And I'm glad that we finally got to sit down and talk. And I appreciate you doing it remotely. I know we were supposed to see each other this weekend, but obviously God had other plans. And so, but I'll be over there in May.
That's cool. Well, I'm definitely going to see you then.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you excited? The Sterling Room is getting a new room.
Well, I guess that plaza, from what I understand, jacked the rent up so much. There was a church next to them, and they had to move because they couldn't afford the rent.
Yep.
And probably that's what their situation was. I don't really know. I would imagine.
Yeah.
But that's one thing about this program. We don't fold. We change.
Yeah, and I was over there the day that I found out. It was 3 weeks ago, a month ago, when I was over there, and I heard, and it was kind of like, well, what's going to happen? And I mean, it's kind of whatever was going to happen, but then they ended up finding that new room, and from what I understand, it's amazing.
Yeah,
and
there will be no smoking in there. So the last of the smoking at the Broward County meetings is gone.
Yeah.
As far as I know, there's one left in West Palm Beach.
Yeah.
But I look at it this way: how many meetings I go to every week? I usually average 7-8 meetings a week, and for 1 hour I can sit and not smoke in a meeting.
Yeah.
Being the smoker that I am, so
yeah. Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time today. And so this Sunday is when that cookout's going on at the 101.
Yeah. No. It's at Quiet Waters Park.
Oh, Quiet Waters Park.
It's the Bottom Line Group's annual picnic. I've been attending it for 14 years because I didn't stumble into that room until sometime in whatever. But it's a great time. So if you live in the Broward County area or wherever, just come on, ride out.
Yeah. And then what was the event you were talking about that's going down in August?
I'll talk to you on the side if you can. Just make sure we stay on this phone call and let's talk about that because I'd like to pick your brain and offer you a little bit. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. Well, Joe, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here, and I will reach back out and we will discuss that then. And
yes.
Thank you so much for all you do for others and for sharing some of your story today and your service. And it means the world to sit down and talk to you one-on-one. And it was a great experience. So thank you so much for your service.
This is a blessing for me, bro. This is one of the ways I stay sober. And I love you to death. I always have. You're a great guy, and I wish you nothing but blessings. And guess what? I'm watching them happen for you. So
thanks. It'll by the grace of God, it'll be 2 years on May 22nd.
That's amazing. Did you ever think that could happen?
The funny thing is, no. All the times I tried to get myself sober or tried to stay stopped, it never worked out. But coming to know God and a few good people in Alcoholics Anonymous and meetings and just this life, it's so beautiful. And God has definitely played a big part in my life. And I'm so thankful to know God better today.
Well, just remember, God and the program are the miracle, and we're just byproducts of it.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Joe. All right, the recovery band, they're going to take us out. They're going to play that one funk song they know. So
okay, God bless you all.
God bless you too. Kick it, boys. And a studio audience for you. Joe, thank you so much again.
Thank you, bro. God bless.
God bless. Bye.